So our first presenter, as I've said, is Kiran Zara. She's from Lahore School of Economics. She's an MPhil scholar, and her research area is in the field of gender, households, experimental economics, and women empowerment. She will be presenting to us today a paper on who leads the way, an experimental inquiry into the impact of power relationship among households through altruistic choices in a patriarchal society. So everybody, I'd like to join me to welcome Kiran to the stage. Thank you very much. So Kiran, your time starts now. Best
Um,
wishes with your presentation.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
And
Thank you, Miss Ola. So, I'll start off with my presentation. This paper is derived from my MPhil thesis, and the title goes, as Miss Ola already mentioned, Who Leads the Way, an experimental inquiry into the impact of power relationships among households through altruistic choices in a patriarchal society. Ahmed Nawaz and Asad Ghalib are my co-authors in this paper. Next slide, please.
okay.
I'll start off with the presentation plan. So, first of all, we'll start with introduction, followed by literature review, and then so on and so forth. Next slide. So, yes, first of all, let's just explain altruism as it is taken in this paper. It is a deed by an individual that increases welfare of another person or others at the expense of that individual's own personal welfare. So, now that being said, we all know that altruism has a very important role to play when it comes to decision making within the household. Now, that being said, we all know that since many years, many scholars and researchers have recognized households as a principal decision making unit and thus generating economic income. So, within the household, to explain decision making, there are many different models that have been devised since many years. For instance, the collective preferences model. Now, if we look at this model, we will come to know that all these models have their own underlying assumptions. For instance, in a society like Pakistan, where usually the male members of the family head the household and make all the decisions. So, if we take the society of Pakistan and take the example of collective preferences model, the assumption says that the father, who is the head of the household, will be making all the decisions and will take care of everybody's preferences within the household. However, in reality, this is not the case when equilibriums depart and thus create a conflict over resource allocation decisions. This is because all the members have different preferences, and just one member can't decide about it. So, next slide, please. Now, literature shows that household welfare increases when women make resource allocation decisions. So, women should make decisions in the household to increase overall welfare, because if we are able to increase welfare of one household, we'll be able to increase overall welfare in the society. Next slide. Now, that being said, there is a criticism uh, for a society like Pakistan where most women do not earn. So, critics in this regard claim that it is easier for them to be altruistic because they get the money easily. They don't earn, they just get the money from their husbands. So, it is easier for them to be altruistic. So, in this paper, it will be interesting to find out as to who should lead the way, the husband or the wife. Next slide. So, the research objective in general is to further the debate on the issue of decision making and bargaining power within the household, and in particular to assess the impact of entitlements on altruistic choices within a household among spouses. Next slide. So, my research question is also in line with the research objectives, and it goes as: do the way economic entitlement is earned and gender differences cause variation in intra household altruistic choices among spouses? Next slide. So, moving on to the literature review, empirical studies show that empowerment of women increases household welfare in terms of health, education, nutritional status of children. Next slide. Yeah. In some studies, it was seen that the clothing of the children and their mental well being also improved when women were well. uh, in power to make education decisions. Next slide. On the other hand, some researchers found, some studies show that men are more altruistic not just towards their own families but to the society at large. Next slide. Now, with that being said, there is another group of researchers who claim that it is not the gender but the social norms in the society at large that directs the behavior. So it does not relate to gender. Next slide. Now, all of this brings down to the research gap that we'll be fulfilling with this paper. So, from the above literature, we can see that the evidence is mixed and very contextualized. Also, to the best of our knowledge, there is hardly any study in the context of Pakistan that looks at the impact of entitlements, gender, and social norms in an experimental framework. So, in this paper, we will be looking at all of this. Next slide. So, moving on to research methodology, I'll start off with explaining the experimental design. In this experiment, we played a household allocation game, and it is a modification of the Theodol's dictator game. Uh, it was this household allocation game was conducted to study altruism within the households. In pre-game surveys, they conducted to get the information about the population as to what they like to eat, what they like to wear, what are the things that they want to spend their money on. And we conducted this experiment with a sample of 100, and they were all from lower middle class. Next slide. In the experiment, we had two bundles, meaning thereby that all the participants or subject of the experiment had two options. Namely, they had to choose between the private consumption bundle or the joint consumption bundle. In the private consumption bundle, we had mobile phone top up that would be consumed by just one person. And in the joint consumption bundle, we had staple food items that would obviously be consumed by everybody in the family. So the joint consumption bundle was taken as a proxy for all three, and the subjects were to choose between the two. Moving on to the treatments were specially introduced to cater for procedural utility in the paper. Uh, there were two treatments, the non-effort treatment and the effort treatment. In the effort treatment, the subjects were not to do anything. They were just directed into a room and they were to make a decision about the bundle as to which bundle they wanted to take. And then they were just there to fill the socio-economic and demographic survey, and then they were escorted out of the premises. However, in the effort treatment, because we wanted to instill the sense of entitlement to our subjects, we made them play a game or fulfill a task. Upon completion of the task, they were given the choice between the two bundles, and again they were to make a decision between the two, and then fill the socio-economic demographic survey, and then they were also escorted out to. Next slide. So moving on to the procedure of the experiment, as soon as the participants came into the premise, they were gathered around in a large room, and only one spouse was randomly picked to play the game. This was done to cater for equal gender representation, and then subjects were given a payoff for coming up on time, property, and a payoff from the experiment. And both the spouses filled the socio-economic demographic survey, which I'll be explaining later on. Next slide. So this is the pictorial depiction of the procedure of the experiment for the subject. As soon as they entered, they were given IDs, and then the random selection of the spouse was done. They were then randomly selected for the treatment. Either they were going for the effort treatment or the non-effort treatment. And then the experiment was performed. The vouchers were generated according to their choice, the same choice, and then they were given the show of fee and the voucher, and then they were reunited with their spouse and escorted out of the room. We made sure that we escort them out of the room to control for fungibility. So next slide. Yeah, this is for the other spouse who did not play the game or did not became the subject of the experiment. He was just given the ID, and then they were after random selection of the subject of the spouse, they were escorted to another room where they just filled the socio-economic and demographic survey. received their show of free, and then they left the premises. Next slide. I somehow don't see anything on the slide. These are the those were the pictures from the experiment that I suppose would take a little longer to load. Okay, we'll move on to hypothesis to save time. So these are the hypotheses that decisions are alike in both the treatments. Decision by both the genders are alike in the effort treatment. Decision by both the genders are alike in the non-effort treatment. Decisions by males are alike in both the treatments, and decisions by females are alike in both. Next slide. So moving on to the research methodology, we use multivariate probability regression model to test the data that we collected from our experiment. Over here, yi is the measure of altruism, and as I told earlier, joint consumption model was taken as a proxy for altruism. Beta 1 treatment is binary variable. 1 was taken for the effort treatment and 0 for non-effort treatment. And male was again a binary variable. 1 was taken as male and 0 otherwise. And X signify the socioeconomic demographic characteristics that we gathered from the socioeconomic demographic survey that we conducted during the experiment. Next slide. Here are the descriptive results. Over here, you can clearly see that subjects in the effort treatment, 58.38% of the subjects chose the joint consumption bundle in the effort treatment compared to just 53.33% in the non-effort treatment. Next slide. Now, if we bifurcate it by gender, we see that 40% of the males in the non-effort treatment went for joint consumption bundle, and 30% of the males went for joint consumption bundle in the effort treatment. Next slide. For females, it was just the opposite. In the effort treatment, 92% of the females went for joint consumption bundle. They made the altruistic choice, and in the non-effort treatment, 64% of the females of the sample went for joint consumption bundle. Next slide. Okay, this finding of conflict was again very interesting. We found out that mostly there was conflict within the household over resource allocation decisions. And we see that this conflict increases when the total household size is more and when the years of marriage are higher. We'll explain this further when we go on to our empirical results. So yes, the empirical results. For this, we ran three different regressions in this paper and found that the coefficient of treatment is positive and negative. They are positive and significant, sorry. It indicates that procedure of earning money does not have an impact on the consumption decisions. So this stands directly in contradiction to the existing literature on procedural utility. Moving on to the gender, that is shown as male in this table. Um, when we incorporated gender into this regression, we found that the coefficient became negative. It implies that men are largely less likely to choose joint consumption bundle. So our results stand contrary to the classic work of common preferences model, as I already mentioned. Yet, literature supports this notion as well that men are less altruistic. For instance, Lundberg and Pollard. No, the previous slide. Then we ran a second regression in which we created a interaction term between gender and treatment, which is signified by TM1 over here. And TM1 over here shows a negative coefficient, which implies that women's altruistic behavior is independent of the earning procedure, while men are sensitive to earning procedures. The literature also supports this idea of women being more compassionate and nurturing compared to male. Moreover, the coefficient of conflict is positive, showing that those who have conflict in the household tend to make altruistic choices rather than they making um, selfish choices. Now, in the third regression, when we interacted this conflict with the gender, which is now signified as CM, we saw that the coefficient became negative again and it was significant. So, This finding shows us that if the subject of the experiment is female and female who has conflict in the household will go for joint consumption model as opposed to males who, if have a conflict in their household, will go for private consumption. So this also confirms Sen's idea of cooperative conflict. Next slide. Yeah, this I've explained already. Next. Uh, Still next slide. Okay. So the coefficient for household structure is negative again, which implies that people living in a joint family system tend to be less altruistic. This is because the social costs are always greater than the private costs which the spouses fail to internalize, and that's why the moral hazard in this regard increases inclination towards private consumption bundle. Similarly, the coefficient for house ownership is negative, which implies that people who own a house, as in those people who have their house in their own names, are less altruistic. So, in a society like Pakistan, house ownership brings in a lot of security. So, the moral hazard leads people towards private consumption. If they own the house, they think that they have already achieved a lot, and now they can spend the money on private consumption. Next slide. So yeah, after looking at the results from the experiment, it seemed that the choices of the subjects are they may be directed by social norms. Therefore, we conducted a social norm elicitation survey with 32 new subjects, and they were to rate the decisions of the subjects of this experiment according to the scale given over here. Um, if they considered the decision very appropriate, they rated it as 1. If they considered it somewhat appropriate, they rated it as 1 by third, and so on and so forth. Next slide. So this is again the pictorial depiction of how they were to judge the decisions. Every male was asked to judge the decisions of both males and females under both effort and non-effort treatment for both bundles. For instance, if the male had to rate the decision of a male in the effort treatment if he chooses the joint consumption bundle or if he chooses the private consumption bundle. The same was done in the non-effort treatment and the same was done with females. Next slide. Likewise, females were to rate the decisions of fellow females and males using the same scale that the males use. Next slide. Now, the findings of this are very interesting. We see that married males think that it is appropriate, it is very appropriate for males to choose private consumption bundle in both the treatments. However, it is inappropriate for a woman for women to choose private consumption bundle if she is under the non-effort treatment. However, in the effort treatment, they think that okay, it is somewhat inappropriate. However, for the joint consumption bundle, males think that it is inappropriate for males to choose joint consumption bundle in both the treatments. But for females, it is appropriate if they go for joint consumption bundle, irrespective of the treatment they received. Next slide. I, yeah. So we have the next slide. Over here, the married females, when were asked to rate the decisions, they think that it is very appropriate for males to choose private consumption bundle in both the treatments. However, for females, they think that it is somewhat appropriate or somewhat inappropriate. In the non-effort treatment, they think that it is somewhat inappropriate for females to choose private consumption bundle. In the effort treatment, they think that maybe it's somewhat appropriate. For the joint consumption bundle, females think that it is somewhat inappropriate for males to choose joint consumption bundle in both the treatments. But for females in the non-effort treatment, it is appropriate to choose joint consumption bundle and likewise same for the effort treatment. So this finding was really interesting, mainly because this clearly signifies that the males they have the internalized, both the males and females have internalized the social norms of a patriarchal society. So males prefer private consumption under strong sense of entitlement, and females also tend to agree to that belief. And this can also be supported by sense ideas. Also, males believe that women should choose one consumption money, especially if they have weak entitlement claims, meaning thereby that if they don't have earned the money themselves, they haven't made any efforts. Yeah. Um, so, based on the findings, we found that women are largely more artistic, irrespective of the treatment they receive. However, more males than females choose private consumption mental in the acid treatment. On the other hand, choices in the non-acid treatment are not significantly different for both the genders. So, the results largely support women's empowerment within the household. Therefore, women should take the lead and allocate resources to increase overall welfare. Next slide. uh, Significance and implications for academia. As I already mentioned, there has been a study in this context in Pakistan before. So this paper will create new evidence in the context of Pakistan. Also for future, we should a QPI game instead of QPI game, where a more variable connected disease standards for the students development of India, especially the role of mathematics, technology, in Pakistan, giving only one formal setup for elementary class. Also, different classes should be studied in interclass differences should also be studied in terms of education and cultural and political. For policy makers, the study will help in setting policies in and financially by providing education to certain classes using the perception of society through different topics media. Tourism is easy, having building also to reduce the psychological burden. Also is the most from the system to the future travel system. This will help in reducing conflict over housing resource allocation design. And also provision of saving plans and subsidized institutions for all can help women to gain empowerment and invest their energy towards welfare. The limitations, for limitations, we have the use of space, another use of power, limitation, social value, yes, yes.
Okay, actually, I just want to be on the podium. Actually, I co-authored that paper with Kiran, so I'm just here to answer any questions along with Kiran.
If they
Otherwise, we just further the debate a little bit on that. But we would really like to see someone from the audience to ask any questions.
So we have a question in the group chat where somebody asked to define altruism again. It is basically a deed by an individual that increases welfare of others at the expense of that person's personal welfare. So that's how we took it in this paper as well. I hope this answers your question because you said that you missed that part. So I just repeated that.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure if the rest of the people that are listening me, but not. But yes, actually, what Kiran has already defined altruism is basically what in our study, what we have done is basically it's a choice between going for the private consumption good and the joint consumption good. So that basically defines, altruism. Literally, it's basically how much you do care for each other, the people around you, the rest of the society, and it's, sort of its antithesis. You can say the people who are more egoistic, they are more driven by their own self-interest, a rational economic man. So versus the one who has that altruistic feelings that he or she is, do care for the other people. So that is basically the definition which we took along. And we defined that in our experiment. What we did is that whether the spouses, what sort of goods they are going after. The one which takes care of the whole family which is the joint consumption good. And what we actually took as a joint consumption good is we did the social elicitation survey, and then we selected a staple crop, the wheat, because the whole household that benefits out of it in terms of their 2 or 3 times daily intake. So that is basically a classic, joint consumption good versus the private consumption good, which is what we selected is the top-up mobile credits. Now that is something you can exclusively spend on yourself. So that is basically the choice between going for the joint consumption good and private consumption good. That defines the altruism. The people who go for the joint consumption good tend to have more altruistic feelings rather than the ones who go for the private consumption good. And it's okay. I think there are no other further questions. I just want to further the debate a little bit. It's quite an interesting study in the context of experimental research, where you can control quite a lot of things. But in these parts of the world, and also in Africa as well, in South Asia, it's quite interesting to see, particularly because what Kiran has already explained, that there are, of course, logistics and limitations in terms of the finances and all that stuff. Otherwise, it would have been great if the future line of research could be directed towards more. Because what we see, the whole issue in household in the context of both the spouses, but there are some other major players inside the household, inside, who are living in a joint family system, like the father-in-law and mother-in-law. So all the decision making, it's not only solely taken in between the spouses, but there are some other actors and characters. They have their say as well. So probably the future line of inquiry, it's quite interesting. And I was talking the other day with Kiran that probably we could have done further study on taking into account the other household members, particularly the in-laws. The mother-in-law's role is very interesting. So then that would make it a 3-player game rather than 2-player.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you very much, Ahmad. It's really a wonderful presentation and a very nice project. But I saw in your recommendation and implication for policymaker at the end of your paper, most of the implications that you wrote are on how to engage for women. And in gender studies, we also encourage men engagement. We also encourage men as part of the gender equality project. So based on this project, that we have found that women are more altruistic than men. So what could be the implication for projects that wants to use the approach of men engagement? What is the implication of the result of your research for project intervention that wants to use the men engagement approach for their intervention program? Do you get my question, Ahmad?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. So please, I would like you to
May I
tell
answer
us.
now? Oh, yes. Well, actually, yeah, that's very interesting. It's and of course, in economics, it's basically the one unit, the whole philosophy of the, household when it comes to resource allocation. It's like one unit, and that is what is exactly been happening in patriarchal societies as well. That once it comes to the resource allocation, even some external, interventions in terms of credit, particularly directed towards women, are result in the increasing the or directed towards the whole family business. So in that aspect, I mean, this is basically behavioral sort of study. Yes. If you just go by what our findings are, that women are more altruistic, then of course you simply have to leave the men out of the equation. But of course that is that is not the case. The thing is that particularly when it comes to resource allocation, okay, then the woman should take the lead. But again, it's the matter of basically a delicate act. You have to balance it out in terms of policy implications when it comes to men, just to make their behaviors more in line with altruistic feeling. Probably the policy should be geared towards that. It is not only it's just a matter of realization as well. So probably that is one way that the policy could be directed towards the men. And in any case, primarily they are the they are earning, particularly in patriarchal society. So it doesn't mean that all what they are earning, they are going for private consumption good. Of course they are spending money on the household as well. But relative to, when compared to the women, then of course they have lesser altruistic feelings. But again, considering in the bigger paradigm and bigger picture, if you see, then more or less the things will contribute towards the overall household. Because if you see the one unit household perspective, so in that case, uh, I think altruistic feelings, even if you just, irrespective of, you just do that sort of study in every society, I think you will come up with the same sort of results.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Very interesting paper.
Yeah.
So I will encourage our audience, if you have more questions for Kiran and Ahmad, you can continue to write the question in the text chat or question chat, and we are going to get it across to them. And also during the coffee time, they can attend to the question, and they can always, you can give us your email so that when they answer your question, we can get them back to you. Thank you very much. We are very grateful. So, Ahmad, and you can go off the stage now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all very well. Interestingly, and by the grace of God, today is my birthday. So when I'm done, please sing happy birthday for me. I'm presenting on sexism and female student leadership, the case of a selected university in Ghana, and the university is the University of Cape Coast. Initially, I was to present on, my target group was actually female leaders. But unfortunately, not all of them were ready to speak, so I had to switch to the female, both male and female students, to look out for their perspectives. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll do it. So leadership, we say, is an interesting and significant part of humanity, which has been with us for quite some time now. If we look at the age of leadership, is an interesting and significant part of humanity which has been with us for quite some time now. And we can date back to the time of hunter-gatherers. They were leaders and they did what they had to do for the survival of the group. And leadership, we say, it's good because it's an action and a practice that brings people together. The term leadership does not lend itself to a common definition. However, for the purpose of this study, leadership is defined as the act of offering one's abilities as service to the good management of an institution to achieve the goals of that group. So the focus is to help achieve the goals of that group. Members of the institution or organization therefore look up to the leaders for direction, for solution, and for sustenance. Good leadership, they say, leads to growth and development, and bad leadership leads to distraction as well as stagnation. And so leaders should be well prepared for the position. And this way, There is therefore the need to groom both male and female leaders who will take up various leadership positions for national development. This responsibility therefore lies on the institutions of higher learning to take up this challenge. And it is also part of their mandate as institutions of higher learning. Statistics show that over the last decades, the United States of America have focused on organizing leadership training programs for students as a part of their holistic student development program. Even though colleges have been promoting education and social change, most issues regarding gender and leadership has not been given much attention. And that's the major reason for this particular study. Yes, I realized that there were few females in leadership in my institution, and I did a little feasibility study and realized it cuts across. And so I saw the need to go deeper and to see to find out what's really causing the problem. Research focused by Makanju Bekay and others have looked at the impact of student leadership training, and other scholars like Sean Plan have also looked at the leadership within college student organization and its contribution to development. Majority of current researchers focus on women in educational and political leadership in the West Asia and some sub-Saharan African countries. Little has been done on why few females find themselves in student leadership at the tertiary level, and what university management is also doing to help attain equality in student leadership at the University of Cape Coast. This paper therefore sought to fill the research gap. So we're looking at some statistics from the University of Cape Coast. The University of Cape Coast currently has 10 halls of residence for undergraduate students. However, in the last 5 years, 6 traditional halls existed and voted for all executives. They are the Kwame Nkrumah Hall, which is a mixed hall, Valco Hall, which is also a mixed hall, Casford Hall, that's a males hall. It has just males there. Ogwa Hall, also a mixed hall. Adishi Hall is also a single-sex hall that has only females, and then Atlantic Hall. And so we're going to focus on the mixed halls because they are the ones who vote for both males and females in leadership. As for the single-sex halls, they always have all males or all females in their leadership positions. Records from the last 5 years, that's 2015 today, shows that there's been consistent male presidents and female vice with regards to all presidents and then vice president, especially for the mixed halls. And I think even if I flash back from when I came to the university as an undergraduate, that was in the early 2000s, I have never really encountered in this mixed halls having a female head, except one, that is the Atlantic Hall. That's the only hall that I ever experienced having a female president with a male vice president. And it wasn't actually easy for that female person to win that election. And until then, there's never been a female head. Even with the SRC, there's never been a female head. And so the research sought to unravel the perspective behind the choices students make regarding male and female student leadership in their various halls, and the Student Representative Council, that's the SRC. The SRC is a bigger umbrella that takes care of all the other leadership. And even in the SRC, it becomes a challenge to have a female head. They have never had one. Last year, they had a female vying for the position with a male as her assistant, and it was a very tough one, even for the male to go in as an assistant. However, they didn't win the elections. So yes, these are a few statistics again from the halls. Ogwa Hall, you can see from 2015 till the current presidency, there's nothing like a female as a president. They've all been males. You come to Kwame Nkrumah Hall, it's the same thing. It was a male president and a female vice. Again, we come to Atlantic Hall. This is the hall I said I ever experienced a female leadership in that hall. That was during the time I was an undergraduate of the university, and that's way back in early 2000s. And from that time, there's never been a female president in this hall or any of the other halls. Barco Hall is the same. And then the SRC. The SRC has ever had a female vying for the position but not winning. And in fact, in my time in this university, that's the only time. There was once another female who decided she wanted to lead, but later on she was diagnosed of some mental ailment and she couldn't even go on to vie for the position. So far there's been one female who ever stood out to go in for the position. However, she never won. So the objective of the research is to examine the representation of female students in leadership positions in the University of Cape Coast and to explore the extent to which management have contributed to safeguarding female representation in higher educational student leadership. Theoretical underpinning, the standpoint theory of feminism by Hardin and Smith was chosen for this cause, and I found this theory appropriate for the study because it critiques patriarchal ideologies and makes a case for women to be given a chance in leadership. The fact that it seeks to ensure social justice is one of the points I like so much, because the theory argues for the fact that both males and females could lead and they could all perform, and so females should be given the chance to also lead. That is, if they are capable, they should be given the chance. The research philosophy is interpretivism. I chose this because I wanted to actually get the interpretation of a problem from the participants' perspective, the meanings they attach to whatever they were talking about, and not my meaning. And it was exploratory because this is an area that has not been delved deeper into. The data sources were mainly primary and they were collected from the field, though there were a few secondary sources from journals, articles, books, and the like. And the population had to do with students of the University of Cape Coast who have ever voted. In fact, the first years amongst this group have never voted, but they were added because they had already made their choice. You know that the university was actually going to vote before we went down as a result of the COVID-19. And so they were ready to vote actually, and had decided on who they were going to vote for. And that was how come I added them, because they really had a lot to contribute to the research, and they were from different halls. And the in-depth interview, we did in-depth interviews for 40 students in all. Purposive sampling, we had 9, and then snowballing were 31 of them. Trustworthiness for qualitative study, validity was ensured by pre-testing the instruments and doing member check. Reliability was equally ensured by comparing the instruments with what literature is saying, and this confirmed so many things. Informed consent, privacy, and anonymity were all ensured. And data was analyzed thematically using the thematic network analysis. It was therefore transcribed, thematized, and categorized. And looking at the network here, the sexism in female student leadership from data got from participants means that it was as a result of patriarchy, low self-esteem and confidence from the female students themselves, and then the level of encouragement from university management. We're going to go deeper into these things to know what it means, and then the level of encouragement from male and female students as well. So in all, there were 20 females and 20 males from different programs being read in the university, and their age ranged from 17 to 28 years. Majority, that's 32, were within the age bracket of 17 and 22. There were age brackets 23 and 28. The marital status, 36 of them were singles, but 4 of them, they were all females. They were married and they were in the final year actually. Levels and numbers, there were 10 level 100 members. there were 10 level 200 people, and they were made up of 5 and 5 altogether. So 5 males and 5 females. There were 10 level 200s, also 5 males and 5 females, 10 level 300s, 5 males and 5, and then 10 level 400s, also 5 males and 5 females. And the courses they were reading ranged from social sciences, arts, law, agric, biomedical science, medical school, mathematics, statistics, and education. And the ethnicity, we had 16 accounts, 10 Evers, 9 Gans, and then 5 Northerners. These are some of the ethnic groups we have in Ghana, though not all of them. And so now we come into discussion of our results and why students vie for leadership positions. It was confirmed of the fact that there are few females in leadership positions. In fact, all 40 participants confirmed that there are few females in leadership positions. And they confirmed that both males and females are required to be well equipped with leadership skills for future positions. 34 of them agreed to that, but 6 were of the view that students vie for positions because of their selfish interests, that is, to embezzle funds and lord over other students with their positions. And so this 6 believe that it is not the best to have all students vying for such positions, especially when their intentions are not right. Majority of the participants were of the view that their colleagues got interested in participating in students' leadership because it will contribute to developing their leadership potential. And these are some of the things literature confirmed, that it is to help build their leadership potentials, because some of these students are likely to get into leadership positions when they grow up or graduate from the schools. And yes, we are seeing a number of them who are now in national politics. And so the best is to train them well in the institutions so that they can get into these positions and have good practices. It will also help better their leadership potentials in their future careers. Perspectives on who should go in for the position of president. Yes, students agree that, in fact, 31 of them agree that males should go in for the position of presidency. 3 of them also agree that females should go for the presidency. And then 6 agrees that both males and females should go into the position of presidency. But the major reasons for which some of the students chose to vote for male presidents include patriarchy, self-esteem, the level of encouragement from students, level of encouragement from university management. And so they are the heads. For them, the males should go in for the position of presidency because they are the heads and have always been. Thus, no woman can take it from them. They are better leaders than females. They listen to advice better than females who prefer to do the things their own way. This is according to the students. It is always the best to have a male president and a female vice. They already have the wisdom to lead right from home. They have more confidence and are more assertive. They do not attach emotions to leadership. Please, I am rushing this because I want to stay within the time. I have quite a number of slides, so pardon me. Thank you. Some of the reasons also include the fact that most females do not believe in themselves, and so immediately they come out and hear certain comments, they withdraw. Yes, some of them withdraw when they hear bad comments about themselves. The confidence goes down and they decide not to go in for the position anymore. Once we encourage them to go for the position, we remain loyal by voting for them. This is according to some of the students. They're saying that they encourage them to go in for the position. And so once they have encouraged them, they have no choice but to vote for them. And once the university qualifies them to participate, we also have no option but to vote for them. Yes, if the university qualifies the person, what do? You have to vote for him or her, but her. And this is from a third-year male student. She says that he says that as for the position of president, it is a must that a male takes it, especially the SRC and local NUCs presidents. I just can't imagine a whole student body being led by a female. No way. she is very likely to make a lot of mistakes along the way compared to a male president. Most females don't have a taste of leadership from home and can't lead the way a male leader will. They like to do things their own way, and this will not help the, the group. And so I prefer to what? To vote for a male president who will handle things right like a man. So why females should vie for positions of president? There were there were two females and one male responding to this. According to them, females are good leaders. They consider both gender in their decisions. They are patient, they are calm, and they listen attentively before going ahead to take any decision. They consult and use wisdom in leadership. They lead with passion and do not misuse funds. And this is a voice of a level 400 female student. She says that apart from good leadership, I believe female presidents are the best we can have because they do not embezzle funds like most male presidents do. Sometimes I think students don't know what they want because if they did, they will know that the best leaders are females. Why both males and females should vie for positions of president. And these are the responses we had. They are both good leaders and can make a difference. History makes us know that both past male and female leaders of our nation made good records. They mentioned Yasantua, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Professor Jenano Pukwajiman, Georgina Wood, Madam Bamford Addo. They mentioned Dr. Kwame Nkrumah because the argument was that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah picked quite a number of females in his leadership and they performed so well. And so this is how come Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's name appeared here, even though he's not female. And then these are words from a level 200 female student. She says, for me, it's a privilege to have either a male or female president because they are both human beings. And once they decide to vie for the position, it means they are capable and should be given the opportunity. As for me, I don't listen to propaganda messages before I vote, but I vote based on what I see in the person, whether male or female. Students' choice of male and female leader and assistant, that's deputy for different positions. They agree that 32 of them agree that males should be the heads and females should be the assistants. 28 females as heads, 8 of them, and males as assistants, 12 of them. Their reasons were that males are born leaders, males will not show off with their position like females will do. Males have learned how to lead right from their homes before coming to school. Males are more effective as leaders than females. Males are wiser in decision making than females. Males have a sense of control than females. Males are more assertive than females. Male leaders are not as arrogant as female leaders. Males know how to sell themselves better than females. Males are good at creating propaganda messages to win against their female contestants. These are some of the reasons why they believe males should be the head. I think that, and these are words from a level 300 female student. She says that I think the kind of leadership we see in our homes is what inform our choice of leaders as students. I have always known and seen my dad as the leader in my home and my mom as his assistant. And so what I know is the woman does her best when assistant than when she's given the major role. This is a female. And then a level 400 male student also says that I think some of the comments we hear from our parents and grandparents right from infancy, even until now, makes it difficult for us to accept a female leader. As for me, because I lived with my grandparents, who are even more entrenched in patriarchy than my parents, I have come to believe that a male head is far better than a female head. And that informs my choice when voting. So interventions from the university management, we asked whether they think the university has put anything in place to ensure that females are well voted for or females come up for the positions. 15 of them said there were no interventions. 8 of them said yes, there are interventions. And 17 of them said they were not sure of any interventions. And so what they mentioned were the introduction of a gender-based courses. This train them to understand that yes, the female can equally lead as a male, and so they should be given the chance. And then orientation programs in gender and sexual harassment. During the orientation programs of first years, they are given talks and presentations on sexual harassment, and they are enlightened into various aspects why they should allow females to lead. And then SEGRA, this is the gender center in the university. SEGRA special orientation program tagged Camp Life Pack and seminars organized for students. They have also come up with a pack for students when they come to the first year. During orientation, SEGRA takes some few students through some trainings to also go out to train their young students who have just come, the freshmen who come to the university. And some of this trainings they give them is based on gender and leadership. And so some of them said that these are some of the things the university is put in place to ensure that females are also well represented in leadership in the university. What the university can do to help change the situation, help change the situation of few female in leadership. And so they suggested introduction of general compulsory courses to enlighten students on gender issues, fallacies, and leadership. Strict rules to ensure all first year students participate in the orientation program, encouraging role modeling and mentoring, appointment of more females who qualify to be in management, because according to them, even at the top management level in the university, there are just few females. So people feel that yes, even if the university's top management has few females, then who are we to even go there? And over 100 students and female students also had this to say. She says that yes, I think the university is doing its best, though they don't say it's point blank that vote for females just as you vote for males. Some of the courses we do, like Women in Society, introduce us to gender issues and how credible and accountable women can be when given the chance to lead. And then a level 300 male student also says that, well, I don't think the university is doing something about low female leadership because I am not sure it is their responsibility. The university has given equal chances to everybody, and so it is up to the students to choose who they like. And for me, that is fair enough. Females should sell themselves well to us during campaign period, and once I am very convinced, I would vote for her. And then another from the 400 levels female student, she says that the university is responsible for instilling in students leadership skills for the future. And so if the university realizes there is a problem with female representation and leadership, they should take a step to make it right. I think the university is trying its best, but I don't see it as a priority to management, because even during management meetings with students, we don't see females among the group who come, or sometimes there's one or two females amongst a lot of males. This is another voice. And then finally, we're saying that these accounts bring to the fore how the entrenched patriarchal beliefs and practices in our society is contributing to the low female leadership positions right from the basic level through to the higher level and then to the national level. Conclusions. I hope I am within time. We're saying that even though the university gives equal opportunity to both males and females to contest for leadership positions, management is not doing enough to help bring more females into student leadership. Unlike female aspirants, most male students vying for positions spend a lot of money during posters, buying gifts for electorates, and doing a lot of dirty things to win the seat at all costs. This leads to funds embezzlement when they win the position. Most male aspirants are very good at playing dirty politics in order to win elections. The female aspirants are not good at that. So yes, I missed the side of the conclusions. The low representation of female students in leadership positions is a problem of the strong patriarchal society in which we find ourselves. Both male and female students should vie for presidential positions because they can both be good leaders. Most female students have low self-esteem and confidence and thus have no courage to venture into student leadership even though they have the potential to be great leaders, because females are easily lured by their female counterparts to drop out of the competition with just a little threat or talked into changing their minds. Most students, both males and females, do not vote for female leaders because of their socialization. In that, right from home, they are told that the man is the head and the woman the helper. This informs their choice of leader. There are few females in student leadership because the males incite the female electorates against voting for the females. They talk them into voting against the females and giving them names as well as bribing them with all sorts of material things. And so we move into the recommendations. Uh, so they recommended that apart from policy of gender equality, the university should put strict policies in place to penalize students who practice dirty politics during student elections, like the compulsory courses taken at the various levels. The university should develop a compulsory course which will aim at enlightening students on the fact that political parties stay away from student leadership. All financial support coming from political parties should be stopped as the university management ensures that students engage in a cost-free election. Um, do I still have a little more? I can read the rest. Apart from the policy of gender equality, the university should put strict policies in place to penalize students who practice dirty politics during student elections. Oh, I think I have read this. So yeah, thank you for the attention.
Okay.
It's time for questions.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. Very useful presentation and very educative. Though you use more of
Thank,
our time, then we allowed you because we were really enjoying it. So I don't know in
thank
the audience if we have question for now. So please let us know. We can still give some time. We have 21 minutes left in this session. So if you have question for now, you can please text the question in the question chat, or you can raise your hand and we can briefly bring you to the podium for 1 minute to ask our question. So I don't know if you have question for now. This is question time.
okay.
Yes, your respondents are they just students, male and female students that have ever voted? That is what you said when you were presenting.
Yeah, but the first year students, they have never voted. They were yet to vote when we went on the break because of COVID-19. In fact, they were just about moving into voting that we left. So I thought I should interview them as well because they had already made their decisions on who they were going to vote for. And I thought their responses would also be relevant to the research. So the only group of people who have never voted in the university was the first year students, but all the rest had ever voted.
Okay. But I'm also thinking that if you had included those male and female students, especially the female students that have taken one leadership position or more, and ask them why did they contest for the one that they have. If you ask them why did they, I think it would have really provided the underlying issue why is it that it is female that go for vice presidency, or why they don't go for vice presidency. So I think that would have even made the research to be more robust, because even the female themselves, why is it that they prefer to go for vice president? Why is it that they don't go for the president? What is the reason among those female leaders? Why are they going for that position? And also, for the male that have ever been voted for as president, it would have been good to also learn their perception on why they feel they are better president. For the males that have been president one time or the other, it would have been good to ask them two questions. and also ask them about the relationship they have with working with female as vice president in their tenure, working with female as vice president in their tenure, that how was the relationship like. So such involving such people that have male and female that have taken leadership position would have enabled us to know some underlying issues that are even making the female to even go for vice presidency and not going for presidency position.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for your suggestion. In fact, that was what I was actually trying to do. But I think the break also affected the interviews. So I just had few of them, and when you call them on phone, they are reluctant to talk. So I will still do when they come back. I'll try and add them to what I already have now. I believe it will make the research rich, like you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. I think Dr. Ganiat wants to ask question. She said she was raising
Okay.
her hand. Let me put her in the podium. Hello, Dr. Ganiat. You said you raised your hand for question.
Yes.
Yes. Please you can
Yes,
please you
I'll
can
call you back.
ask your
I'll call you back. Thank you. I'm in
Okay,
a
can you
meeting.
hear me,
Thank
please?
you.
yes, you
Oh,
can
great.
ask your question
Yeah.
now. You can ask your
Very good
question.
morning. Actually, a
Good
very good
morning.
morning, everybody, and congratulations to
Good
Dr.
morning.
Latika for that beautiful presentation. And good morning to all other participants in the panel. Actually, it's not a question, it's a contribution. And I
Okay.
actually make a comment while she was presenting that this is a patriarchal society reflection, and it's just similar to Nigerian situation, and maybe by extension, some other countries, African countries, and even Western countries, because I was watching Hillary Clinton's campaign yesterday. A recorded one where during that last election in US, and I was listening to all she was saying. Then we are all hoping that maybe for the first time in history, USA will be able to have the first female president. And we're praying for her. We love her, but she wasn't. Yesterday, when I was listening to all she was saying, I was like, it's like she was giving a kind of predictions, on the current president. And and I look at my own situation as well. You see, I think the patriarchal society training that female received in Africa actually is affecting their psyche and their mentality in going for leadership position. When I'm serving as a dean in my faculty, and for the second time actually, and the deanship is by election. And what I went through during the first election, people would not expect, or I myself were like, okay, after one time, because I was actually asked to come and contest. It's not that I really want to contest, but people said, no, we wanted you. That's why I gave in and I started campaigning. But when like you said in your presentation, when you look at what people will start saying about you, propagandas, blackmailing and all this stuff, still are not even funded. But if you have solid people, those who believe in you as a female, they'll actually push you there. Because I got a majority
Yeah.
vote and I was able to serve for the first time. And I said, okay, good. Bye. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to go on my sabbatical. But they said, no, you have to stay back and continue your good work. You have laid down a foundation. Because I was the first female and the first dean of the faculty, because the faculty was created from another school. So they said, I have to come, and they voted for me again massively, that I won, and I won against a professor. Then I was a senior lecturer, not even an associate professor yet. You can imagine if I don't have the support of all these people, and majority of them are actually male. The problem I have with us is female. I mean, is that the females are the enemies of
Yeah.
themselves. Look at the population of samples in your population, your sample population. 20 males, 20 females. But
Yeah.
look at the responses. You see, even the female coming to say no, it should be male. Why male? Why are they using female to be the
Yeah.
second citizen or second citizen? When you look at the population of most of the countries,
Exactly.
especially Nigeria here, I don't know of Ghana, you will see that it is almost 50-50 percent in terms of female male population. And it's unfortunate that the society, we need a lot of work to do right from home. That is one. I think it should be part of your contribution. So,
Same here.
from home, there are a
Contribute.
lot of work by families, by the units, the society, to ensure that we
Yeah.
give the male and the
Exactly.
female
Yeah.
this leadership, skills right from home, and not just saying that only male can be a leader in the house. Thank you so much. Thanks for the
Okay.
opportunity, Dr. Jumoke. Well
Okay,
done.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, before now I respond, I'd like to respond to Dr. Ganiat. You
Okay.
mentioned that female are even the enemies of females, and we see that as a manifestation of
We need
patriarchy
a
in our
lot to do
society,
right from the
and
home,
that is what we call
because some of them were
neo-patriarchy.
talking about the fact that from home, this is what they've been taught.
Yeah, exactly.
And when they come back to the university too, they see that happening. So there's no point bringing a female to head them. It's actually a big challenge here. I don't know about Nigerian students, but it's a very big challenge here.
Same. It is same here in Nigeria. I know Dr. Jumoke would like to say that. It is same even in OAU, right? It is
Yes,
same
yes,
everywhere.
yes, yes. It's the same thing, but because of patriarchy, because as men and women, we have internalized the patriarchy, and we were all brought up to feel that men are better than us, especially when we talk of leadership position, whether in the home or outside the home. And it is not because female wants to be the enemy of themselves, but it is because they have been brought up, they have been indoctrinated to believe that male are better than female. And that is what is causing this issue of feeling that female are the enemies of themselves. And that is what we as gender specialists, that is what we need to work on, to bring transformative changes in our society, so that we can break this doctrine that people have really believed that men are better in every phase of life. That is what we need to work on as gender specialists, and design programs and intervention that can really break this patriarchy, whether in the lives of women or men. Thank you very much, Alhaja Ganiyat, for that
Thank you.
contribution.
Thank you
Then
so
we
much.
have a question from Kiran. Now you have a question from Kiran. She said, you mentioned that
Okay.
males force females to vote for them. So our question is that, why do female let males exploit them? Is there a need for increasing consciousness? Is there a need for increasing consciousness among the students? Now, can you see the question from Kiran? Elona, did you get the question from Kiran?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so please, can you respond to Kiran's question?
No, I haven't gotten it, please.
Oh,
I
it
think
has.
you went off.
Oh. Okay, but she was saying that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that males force female, to vote for them. That is there anything
Mm-hmm.
that is done to control this issue? You mentioned it in your presentation that males force female to vote for them. So is there anything that is being done to control this contention?
Well, I think my response would be, with the suggestions management is putting in place. There are programs that are gender based that teaches females and the males to know that it's a good thing to have both males and females in leadership, and not just the males. And then the orientation programs, and I think that was why they recommended that the university should put strict policies in place that all first year students participate in, because the orientation program for first years is a whole package, and it takes them through a lot of trainings and presentations, some being gender based. And if you participate in this thing, sometimes you're empowered as a man or a woman to know that it is not only females, it's not only males who are best leaders, but females can also lead. Apart from that, some of us, the gender teachers in our classes, we encourage all genders, to vote for themselves. We encourage them not to allow the males to incite them against the females and all that. And so some of us lecturers who are sensitive to some of these issues are the ones putting things in place. The gender center is also putting in a lot in place. And the university's orientation program also has a section where there's a presentation on sexual harassment and other things. Though these things are not well observed, like I said, few first year students participate in some of these orientations. And I have few parts of the university students in my class. If another gender lecturer also has just few of them, it becomes quite difficult to even get all of them understand that it is not good to take bribe or whatever motivation from a male student just because he wants you to vote for him and that kind of thing. I hope
Okay.
Kiran has answered. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, please, I would like to ask: do you have gender policy in your university? Do you have a gender policy? Is
Yes,
there a
please.
gender policy?
Yes, please. There is a
Okay.
gender policy. And so if somebody decides to vote for a particular gender because of his own views or her own views about the person, the policy has just, the policy gives opportunity for all. It allows everybody to participate. And so the policy does not stand against anybody voting for who he or she prefers. So they will tell you, yes, the policy is in place, it is working. And even regarding women in leadership positions in the university itself, that's the top management, the policy gives opportunities for females to apply. If they are not applying, what can the university do? They'll tell you they cannot force them to apply. And so for them, the policy is in place and it's working, but it's up to them to also do perhaps extra. Perhaps the university should go the extra mile. There are compulsory courses in the university that all students take. And so some of the students suggested that there should be another course like that. Gender and development. You know, we actually ever had a compulsory course for every student of the university, gender and development. But there were issues along the way, they stopped. So that course is no more in place. So I believe, like the students suggested, that this should be brought back so that the orientation will continue gradually. And before they perhaps get to the higher level, at least things will change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. So we hope you will take all the comments to improve on your work and to make it
Yes.
more robust. So we thank all our audience. We thank you for staying with us in this panel, P49, the first session. And we are grateful that you stay with us all the way. So we will soon close this session, but I want to tell you that our second session is coming up by 2 p.m. West African time and UK time, 2 p.m. West African time and UK time. And for that session, we have very interesting papers. We have 4 presentations for the session, and we will really love you to join us again for that session. So I'd like to read some of the presentations that we have. We have a presentation on sexual and reproductive health education among rural families in Ghana, a study in Volta region, Ghana. We have another presentation that will be on gender and human capital development, evidence from selected higher institutions in Nigeria. Then we have another presentation, impact of faith-based organization on gender dynamics for better in Africa, for better or worse. And the last presentation for that panel will be widowhood right in two patriarchal Yoruba towns. Does education attainment has a role to play? So these are wonderful presentations that are coming up in the second session by 2 p.m. UK time. So we want you to log on again and be with us to listen to this presentation. So on behalf of the organizers of the DSA Conference 2020 and on behalf of the other conveners of this session, of this panel, we appreciate your staying with us and we look forward to seeing you at 2. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.